What is going on, folks? Welcome back to another edition of the Fightful Wrestling Weekly, brought to you by the fine folks at Fightful.com. Check them out. Joining me is Tim, as always. It's never any different. It's never any different. Never.
Now, who else would it be?
Jimmy Van, maybe one day. Maybe Sean gets on here one day. You think he'd want to be on here, being that he writes this stuff. But
hey,
Tim, how are you?
That's what he's got us for. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. We're gonna kick off this week with the Raw and SmackDown. Can we call them what I think I was about to call them? Notes. So the title of this week's episode of WWE Monday Night Raw was Between a Brock and a Hard Place, in reference to the angle where Lesnar was refusing to come down to the ring. SmackDown Live was given the title of Cry Baby Cry, which was a nod to the Daniel Bryan promo that led to Miz appearing on screen and saying that Bryan cried like a baby. Pretty self-explanatory. Announcers and talents were instructed to refer to the WWE Evolution announcement as Stephanie McMahon's historic announcement that Stephanie McMahon made. It was all Stephanie, no one else. Just Stephanie. Who else? It was just Stephanie. There was also a case during last week, as if you can tell based on how often it was said, during each broadcast, after every commercial break, every second they could throw it in there. It gets a little annoying at times. Despite having the team named, quote, the leader of worlds, Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy were listed individually and not by that team name on the run sheet. So instead of saying the leader of worlds taking on this team, it said Matt and Bray.
Interesting.
Could be a little interesting. Maybe they're starting to eventually split them apart. I wouldn't be surprised. And finally, contrary to the really bad reports, there is no dilemma or issue with WWE running the graphics for both Brian Lawler and Nikolai Volkov. WWE did put together a Volkov video, which they ran on their YouTube page.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, a very sad day in pro wrestling a couple days ago with three wrestlers passing away. It's heartbreaking whenever an entertainer passes away. Because, yeah. You know, no matter what their role in the company was, they probably made at least one person smile, and that's extremely important.
Right, for sure.
When you talk about entertainers and entertainment, it's hard not to think of Impact Wrestling right now. And Sean Ross Sapp talked to Impact Wrestling. I'm going to call him a superstar because that's what I've said the last 9 times and laughed about it. Impact Wrestling superstar Eddie Edwards. So let's send it over to you right now.
Yeah, there were a couple people I had talked to about a year and a half ago, and they said, because there was always the fable of Impact morale backstage, and I had a couple people back then that said, we don't see these guys enough to dislike anybody or have a bad feeling, and that's changed now. And I get an overwhelmingly positive reception for the way that the company is run now, and now you all are filming stuff very often as opposed to, once every 3 months, and then you don't ever film anything again. How do you think that's changed? Because the direction of Impact has changed. It's tough. It's much tougher to get spoiled on the program these days than it used to be.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing. Before we were doing, 5-6 day loops. We even did like a 10-day loop at a time, and just obviously physically going through that, you're getting worn out by the end. But same with the fans, and it's tough to. You do your best to keep that morale up in the back, but everybody gets tired. Everybody's gonna get tired from production down to the boys. You know what I mean? You're doing 6 days on, 7 days on. It's tough. So it's nice to be able to do 2-3 days at a time and still, see those boys, see your friends, kind of get back into it. It's like you're not gonna lose the momentum. You know what I mean? You shoot something. One thing, and then 3 months later you go back and try to continue the same thing. It's sometimes a little tough to kind of get back in that same mode and the same mindset. But if you're filming more often, you stay in that mindset. It's always fresh on your mind. It's fresh on the fans' minds too. You know what I mean? That's kind of an underrated thing, is that the fans, they need a break too. They're great, but they're going to be there for a few hours at a time, and you just can't overwhelm them with so much for so many consecutive days. So doing a few days at a time, and also going all over and taking part in other independent shows, it's helping kind of get our product out there, and it's also keeping things fresh. And I think I think you can feel that in the locker room.
Obviously, your tag team with Davey Richards helped establish yourself in the company. Do you still keep in touch with him?
I do. We text each other here and there, try to keep up with with what he's doing. He's doing well. You know, he's in school right now, and you know, he's killing it in school and then trying to be a doctor and all that stuff. So my hat is off to him always. You know, he's always given, you know, the cliche 110% in everything he's done, whether it's wrestling or his job, and you know, he's doing that right now.
And if you guys want to see the rest of that interview, head over to Fightful.com or the Fightful YouTube page. Tim, you've got some stuff that you want to talk about.
All right. So last week, we talked about Matt Riddle. This week, we're talking about a little bit more Matt Riddle and some...
How could you not talk about it, bro?
Some things that happened with a certain promotion. So, Sean writes, on an update on Matt Riddle. Shortly after the Fightful Wrestling Weekly dropped last week, Combat Zone Wrestling ran a graphic on their website saying that this would be one of Matt Riddle's last appearances before leaving for the WWE. Now think of this. So they put that graphic up on their website. It was literally, you go to czwwrestling.com, the first thing you see when you load up their wrestling. Their website, I mean. Sean goes on to write, Riddle had no idea that the graphic was up on the site, but omitted from social media, until I passed along a message about it hours later. Mm-hmm. I was told that he requested to take it down, as neither he nor WWE have made any type of announcement he's signing. Correct. The type of situation puts Matt in a weird place, as he's never been shy about interacting with fans and has developed a positive reputation for it. But considering the odd nature of WWE's resistance to sign him before, you know that, it's muddy waters. He's going to not really want to say stuff before he's allowed to say stuff and ruffle any feathers.
Exactly.
And he didn't want any heat on him. Riddle didn't want any heat on him for the image. And it was a CZW kind of thing to do.
Yeah, and Tim will throw up the photo right here. He just threw the photo up. He edited it in. And, that's pretty ballsy on the behalf of CZW. I understand you got to make ticket sales. You got to make pay-per-view sales. But going about it in that way, I felt like it was a little dirty on CZW's part. But given the promotion that CZW is, it's not that shocking.
It's like they're like, oh, my God, Matt Riddle, he's going to the WWE. We've got the scoop. Now come see him here before you can never see him here again.
Exactly.
Like, you could have said the same thing. Hey, come see Matt Riddle in one of his final CZW appearances.
Exactly.
But, I mean, it's not like everyone doesn't expect him to be at TakeOver on August 18th in the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York anyways.
God, what a shill that was. What are we doing this for the WWE or Fightful?
Anyways.
You know who we're doing this for? We're doing it for Fightful. And you know what Fightful has?
A podcast.
A podcast called The List, and your boy with Jimmy Van and Sean Ross Sapp. We're going to send you over. We're going to send you over to a clip right now. Enjoy.
So we're going to somehow move on from Burnt Hair to the All In show.
Yeah.
Because we're doing this on August 1st. That means the show is 1 month from today, September 1st, outside Chicago. I think you said we have somebody that's going to cover it for us.
Yeah, we got to prove for...
maybe not this one. So
we got to prove for credentials to StarCast the week before, actually.
There you go. Which is boy, the StarCast is so worth the money for those vendors. Good for them. So they've announced some of the matches so far for this thing, including Nick Aldis versus Cody for the NWA title, Okada versus Marty Scurll, Joey Janela versus Hangman Page. There's going to be a 6-man tag with the Young Bucks and Kota Ibushi against Rey Mysterio, Fenix, and Bandito. They've announced the commentators are going to be Don Callis and Ian Riccaboni. Ring announcers Justin Roberts and Bobby Cruz. They've even announced some of the referees. Earl Hebner and Jerry Lynn are going to be two of the referees.
I'm so glad Jerry Lynn is doing that.
Yeah, and Sean Mooney's going to be one of the backstage interviewers. So this thing's getting a lot of play, man. They haven't announced a broadcast deal yet, but apparently there's going to be one.
They will. They are. I mean, they've already said they're going to broadcast it. Just a matter of how. Will they go a cheap route? Will they go an expensive route? I mean, StarCast is very, very, very expensive on Fight, but
yes, yeah.
So I'm interested to see how that happens. I've always said they could run that thing on Twitch, and the amount of donations they would get would be psychotic.
Yes,
that's one of those goodwill things where people are going to show up and support you because of what you're doing.
Yes,
because what you're doing is counterculture. I think because there are those people who will just like somebody would be like, bam, here's somebody paid me $75 one time to send Vince Russo a beanie from a sponsor just so Vince Russo would wear it on the air.
We were able to give that to Elijah Burke's charity. There are people like that who will do things like that.
They give it to you?
Well, they gave it to me, and then I gave it to Elijah Burke's charity. But yeah.
Why wouldn't they give the money to Vince Russo if he's wearing the beanie?
Come on. Vince going to give it to Elijah's charity?
Good point. Good point.
He
Nothing
called
more.
me yesterday,
Nothing
by
more
the way.
needs to be said.
He called me yesterday, by the way. Vince did.
For what reason?
To talk about the Google Hangout issues that I mentioned to you.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, well, there you go. But yeah, I think that if they ran it on Twitch, it'd be the best possible option. But the thing is, at this juncture, how could you get on TV? You can't get on like direct TV with this kind of note.
They don't need it. I mean, they basically they sold this out because of their YouTube show. That's one of the big reasons. They don't need it to be on TV.
It was a big reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're fine.